G'day guys, Mike with the Outer Circle, and this is the third episode in this quick series I'm doing where we're looking across the Legiones Astartes at the specialist units. We covered off on Terminators, then we covered off on Power Armor. Today we're covering off on the odd ones out, that is the monstrous creatures and the Legion vehicles. Slash dreadnoughts. So we're going to start out with, I've just put a picture of automata on screen, but it's actually the Exindio class battle automata of the Dark Angels. This is in the Legacies of the Age of Darkness PDF. A lot of people are saying I've never heard of these units before. Where are they? If you go onto Warhammer Community and Google Legacies, or if you Google Exemplary and hit enter, or search them I should say, not Google them, it will bring up these PDFs. So that's where to go to find these things. You can also go up to the very top, go to the Downloads tab, and they'll be in there. Now, the Exindio class battle automata should be used at universities as an example of how not to write rules, because the thing is about 3 pages of rules. And they're confusing rules that go to books you probably don't have or sections you don't have. All in all, it is an absolute mess. Therefore, my advice to you is simple. Don't use the thing, because you're not going to enjoy it, and your opponent's probably not going to enjoy it because it is too convoluted to play it. Alright, moving on. The Iron Circle Domitar Ferrum class battle automata. So this is an Iron Warrior specific unit. It can be either taken as a retinue, if you have Perturabo in the army and you have at least 3, or it's taken as an elite choice at other times. Now, it's essentially a dreadnought for all intents and purposes, except for 2 very important things. One is the shield, which means that it's always going to be a disordered charge when you charge a unit of these, so good defensive option. And 2, it's only weapon skill 4. So wounds and that kind of thing is a little bit different as well, but that's not important because weapon skill 4 is very important for an elite bodyguard unit. It doesn't matter if you're capable of taking wounds, and these are relatively capable of taking wounds. The problem is they don't dish out enough punishment in exchange for the wounds they are taking because of the weapon skill 4. Simply put, 2/3 of the attacks you make are not going to hit. If you go up against other elite units like Huskars, they're going to hit you on 3s, they're going to wound you on 2s, you're going to save on 5s. Your return attack's going to hit them on 5s, wound them on 2s, and they're going to save on 3s. And they're a heck of a lot cheaper than you are, even if you have more wounds. So at the end of the day, this unit really does suffer in that regard. Now, its special weapon is the Graviton Maul, which is basically a side grade to a Thunderhammer. It gives you +2 strength instead of double strength, which on these guys will put you up to about strength 9. But the big thing with it is it's a haywire brutal 2 weapon. So in theory, its potential use is as a dreadnought killer, because you're always going to wound a dreadnought on 2s, whether you have a powerful or whether you have dreadnought close combat weapon or you have one of these. The difference being though, if you roll a 6 on your to wound roll with this, as a part of that haywire test, it's just a wound that they cannot possibly save against. So you're fishing for 6s. Is that justification for taking this model? No. It is very good at killing vehicles, yes, good at killing other automata, I suppose, but against dreadnoughts and such, you're throwing an awful lot of attacks against the wall, hoping that stuff is getting through. Therefore, I don't find them in a particularly fantastic place, and at 150 points, I don't know. I mean, they will be able to take a lot of bolt gunfire, but who is shooting at a Primarch's bodyguard with bolt gunfire? I mean, it does happen, sure. I'm sure there are plenty of people in the comments section who want to give me this huge rundown on it, but really, it just boils down to, most of the time, Primarch bodyguards end up going against other Primarchs and their bodyguards, or you get shot with a lot of super heavy tank weapons, which don't care how tough you are. So, yeah, it's in a funny spot. Next up, the White Scars Kizagan Land Speeder, or Assault Speeder, I should say. Now, I like this unit a lot. I liked it a lot more in Heresy 1 because, well, skimmers, grav, all that was a heck of a lot better in Heresy 1. They're not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. They're definitely better than, well, put it this way, they're the best land speeder in the game for the Space Marines. That is not saying an awful lot, because it still suffers from a lot of the same things that other land speeders do. For example, it's only got 2 attacks, so 1 per crewman, and they share a bolt pistol and they share a chainsword, because riding is hard. The bright side is 105 points, you're getting 2 of the very, very, very useful weapons in this case, which are Reaper autocannons and the assault cannon. So you can put out an awful amount of firepower. Downside though, they don't have the strafing run of the previous edition, so they're not hitting on 2s, and only the 2 Reapers are twin linked. You can take hunter killer missiles. I don't know that it's worth it. 105 points each, and you don't get a discount on the additional ones you purchase in the squad. There's still 105 points for additional one. At least the Domitar Ferrum, the Iron Circle, got cheaper when you bought more, but not with these things. 1 unit in the army, max, and even then, it's really just a sort of mid to longer range harassment vehicle. It's gonna get shredded though this edition. Just 3+ armor save and toughness 7 is a lot worse than last edition, where it actually had a decent armor. It was armor 12 on the front, made it a lot more resilient. Not so in this edition. So yeah, it's a tough one. It hurts me to say, but yeah, I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend this unit, just because I don't think you're going to get your money's worth. I think it's fluffy and it's thematic and all that, but you're not going to get your money's worth out of the unit, sadly. Do you want to pay all this money to Forge World? I mean, you're paying more dollars than the thing is worth points in the game for the privilege of taking this thing, and I just can't justify that kind of expenditure. But for you guys, it might be different. I don't know. Anyway, let's go on from there to the Blood Angels, the Contemptor Incendius. So this here it's Contemptor Dreadnought, and it gets a basically 1 use only jump pack. Where I think it really shines, if you take it in a force with Sanguinius, and you do the Deep Strike Assault with it, because then whenever it makes a successful charge in the game, it is going to do so at weapon skill +1, so weapon skill 6. Very good way to perform. The talents of perdition that it has function like Dreadnought Lightning Cores. Do you need rerolls to wound when you wound things on 2s most of the time? I dare say no. So at strength 7 and only brutal 2 with shredding, I just don't think they're very good weapons. When it gives you the option of taking Gravis Power Fist, so brutal 3, strength 10 weapons for free, yeah, that's the way I would lean. Just take that. It's a way better option. Yes, you can change out the weapons in its hands for melter guns or assault cannons, sure, but you don't really need to spend the extra points. It's a Contemptor. They're very, very strong in this edition. Just give it a pair of Gravis Power Fists and go to town. Really, go to town with it. Keep the heavy flamers. If you run into a horde like Solar Auxilia or something, yeah, the heavy flamers they'll come in handy for that. The big downside of the unit is you can't take it in a Talon. It's just 1 Dreadnought for 1 fast attack choice. Thankfully, as Blood Angels, you don't really need the fast attacks that badly, so you can afford to spend it on something like this. It is a good unit, and at only 200 points for what it brings to the table, with that special 1 use only jump pack, that's pretty good. You're basically paying 30 points over regular Contemptor for the ability to deep strike this thing in without needing a Dreadnought drop pod, or the ability to do its movement characteristic to 12 for 1 turn and get Hammer of Wrath of 2, which, has its bonuses. Okay, the Thousand Suns Contemptor Assyrion Dreadnought. I, for the life of me, haven't been able to get to make this thing work. I said this edition really suffers from people who don't know how to use Psychers, writing rules for Psychers, but it's not just this edition. That's something that goes back probably a decade or more. What you are forced to do here is you're forced to take a ranged weapon or another of the force weapons as its backup weapon. The problem with the force weapon is it's a KN force and it's a strength 9 weapon. And on the surface, you go, well, strength 9 weapon. That's not terrible. But you go, yeah, what's better? Strength 9, the ability to go to strength 11 if you pass a test, or just flat strength 10, which is functionally equivalent in most situations, but is brutal 3. I would argue that that is the better weapon. The regular Contemptor weapon. These things were special in the last edition because they had force weapons, proper instant death force weapons. That meant if you went up against something like Castellax or automata, tough units in the last edition in melee, you could just go in there, swing them with that thing, even a Thanatar, something that you normally had to sort of whittle down over a few turns because it was toughness 8, had 4 wounds. This thing would just go in there. As long as you got 1 wound through, it was just instantly killed. Right? Made it a very, very, very good unit. It's fantastic against Demons of the Ruinstorm and other things. Terrifying unit when used correctly. This edition, buffing it to strength 11 is functionally useless. Why they arbitrarily chose to make it strength 9, I cannot for the life of me figure out. The only thing that maybe possibly it could be is battle hardened toughness 5 units, maybe, or if you go to the main rulebook and you take Biomancy on this thing, which will cost you an extra 50 points, you can only do it on 1 Assyrion in the Talon, and then you can take it up to strength 12, because you'll get +1 strength. In which case you can insta-kill strength toughness 6 units, of which there are absolutely stuff all in the game. Things like land speeders, okay? Land speeders are not giving your dreadnoughts problems in close combat. We've already established they have 2 attacks and share a chainsword. I can't figure out what this unit's designed for. So I thought, what can it do maybe to buff the army then? Well, firepower-wise, it's very restricted in options because you either take the Aetherfire Magna Cannon, which is a plasma cannon, but it's rending 6+ instead of breaching 4+, but it's a KN force, so that can potentially go up to strength 8 instead of strength 6, which means that you are paying 200 points for a Basilisk or a Medusa, which I guess it would be a Medusa in this case. Medusa in this edition I think is rending 6+, strength 8 AP4. You'd probably be better off just to buy the Medusa. So that's not a very great weapons choice. It doesn't even have the Asphyx bolt rounds or Asphyx bolt cannon as options. It's regular Gravis heavy bolter and it's regular combi bolters in its hands. So it's only the special Thousand Suns plasma variant that it gets. So the only thing left to look at on it that could be of use, because it's the same weapon skill, ballistic skill, attacks, all that as a regular dreadnought, none of that stands out. The only thing left is if you pay 50 points for 1 dreadnought in your Talon, and that 1 dreadnought, who remember, he's stuck taking that force weapon, has to take it no matter what, takes a power from the main rulebook. And the only 2 I think are real candidates is the Telepathy Discipline, where you can stop a reaction if you cast it on an enemy unit, or the Telekinesis, where you can create a Telekine Dome and have a big bubble around your dreadnought of 4+ invulnerable saves. And you use it kind of like a crappy version of the Derideo with the old Adamantic Pabes. That's the only way I can see this unit working. And that's paying 250 points. That's just awful. So I'm at a loss with this unit. I don't know what its function is on the battlefield. All I know is I need the riders to actually sit down with me, like they're speaking to a special needs Macca, and say to him, now look Macca, this thing has a purpose, and here's what it does. Okay, explain it to me in simple language, because as I read it, you've completely ballsed up its rules, guys. Speaking of ballsed up rules, Castellax Achaia. So for not much less than a Contemptor Dreadnought, you can buy something that is much, much worse. And people look at these sort of things and think, oh, it's got lots of wounds, it's got lots of toughness. Guys, this isn't current edition 40k, it's not the last edition of the rules. If you don't have weapon skill of at least 4, you are trash. because you can't hit anything. And this thing is weapon skill 3. This thing is hitting basic Marines on 5s in close combat, and it only has 2 attacks. That's terrible. And it has to actually use the Achaea ability on those attacks to even make them strength 8 so they can instant kill Marines. If you don't pull that off with your only AP3 weapons, then Marines will actually get feel no pain saves against this thing. And if they're in Artificer armor, if you're up against something with boarding shields or Artificer armor, it can cause you a lot of problems with this unit. It is absolutely trash at killing Marines. So then you look at the firepower. What's it got? It's got 2 combi bolters, ballistic skill of 4, and they're going to be the Asphyx bolt guns. So, Asphyx bolt guns, they're something the Assyrian doesn't have, and you're going to drop 6 inches in range on this thing, but you're going to gain rerolls to wound. You're going to gain shred on it. So rerolling to wound on combi bolters on a 150 point, or 140 point, model. That's not great. What about weapons choices? Well, it comes with that aforementioned Ether Fire Plasma Cannon, which rending 6+, for the potential at strength 8. No, that's not very good. Alright, what about the bolt cannon then? That's the other upgrade. Well, the Ether Fire Cannon being exchanged for the Asphyx bolt cannon is probably your best bet. Heavy 4, range 24, shredding, AP 4, strength 6. Very good at killing Solar Auxilia. I have an elderly grandmother who's probably very good at killing Solar Auxilia though, so it's not a great example of what this unit can bring to the table. There's a Rite of War, and I'll specifically go and reference it. There's a Rite of War here called the Achaean Configuration. And I think what was done was they wrote this to try and sell more of this model, probably to justify the investment in sculpting it in the first place, because I bought a few, and I know a lot of people who have, but maybe they don't sell well, who knows. And in that, these guys become non-compulsory troops choices. Problem with that is, you've still got to buy regular troops choices, then you can take these, and you still need a psyker near them in order to make them function. A psyker in this edition where psykers are primary targets for snipers to just ping out of squads. And this unit gains the line sometimes. They become scoring if they're within 6 inches of a friendly psyker. That means you have to babysit them, and if you're babysitting them with your tactical marine squad sergeant, who's a psyker, well, that's good for these guys because they're going to be scoring, but that tactical squad that was next to them already was scoring, so that doesn't help. So you have to keep them around your HQs then, or around elite units like Sekhmet who have a psyker in charge of them. Those kind of things. As a Psi Automata, you don't have access to the minor cults or anything like that. They're just so situational. Like the Assyrian, I can't find a way of making these work. They're just not fit for purpose. If they were weapon skill 4 and had more attacks, maybe. But 2 attacks, 140 points, strength 6, AP 3, firepower equivalent to maybe 2 Terminators, if you're lucky. I don't know what they were on when they made this unit, but yeah, it's hot trash. Even in the Rite of War, it remains trash. There is probably someone furiously typing in the comments right now about how they've played Castellax Achaea and how they, beat Comrade Kurz with Castellax Achaea. I don't care. Don't write that comment. It's just so it's like they're in a person's, like, oh, I rolled 26s in a row, what are the chances of that? It's like they're very low, but that one time you did it doesn't mean that it's something that's regularly going to occur. And I feel the same with units like this, or, Dark Angels Interrupters. The amount of people that yesterday were like, oh, Interrupters, which I did get wrong slightly, because I didn't mention they were flamer armed. I treated them kind of like they were plasma gun armed. That was my mistake. I should have been very clear. But they say things like, oh, my Interrupters always kick ass. It's like, well, who's dumb enough to let you get that close with plasma flamers? I wouldn't let you do that. I would position my troops in such a way as to deny you that, because that's a huge part of this game, right? if the enemy has a unit like that, you try to deny them being able to use it effectively. That's why units that are very easy to use are so favoured in the game as a whole. And that's why something like this, which requires so many things to go right, are not well liked, why they're not well favoured. Because you have to work your ass off to make it do something. And it's like, am I going to pay 106 Australian dollars for an 140 point paperweight? No, because it's awful. And last up for today, the Wordbearer's Marigal. Now, technically, there is another dreadnought in the. Well, there's a couple. There's 3 dreadnought special characters in the Legacies PDF. We are not going to look at those characters. Instead, we're going to finish up here at the Marigal because this is the last actual unit. So, the thing with the Marigal is you're paying 240 points for a Contemptor Dreadnought with better weapon skill, worse ballistic skill, better strength, better toughness. Same strength, same toughness, but better wounds. Okay, it's initiative 5, it has Rampage, Pathfinder, move through cover. So this thing's basically ignoring difficult terrain. Can't go through walls anymore like the previous edition, but any area terrain there is not going to matter to it. And really what you're taking it for is the fact that it's just a close combat beat stick. Really, people will have to do something about it, because if they let it get too close, it's just going to cause them issues. Now, it is a bit of a problem because it is accursed. It will be a negative modifier to have it near your own Gal Vorback. So, keep that in the back of your mind. Anything that's a Psyker, anything that's corrupted subtype, that could be Sons of Horus units, like, say, Horus himself, like the Transcended Horus type thing. Yeah, any of that sort of stuff, keep it away from this guy, because it's going to be penalised. It's going to be fighting at -1 strength and toughness when they're within 6 inches of him. That's going to make Gal Vorback instant killed by strength 8, and of course there is an awful lot of strength 8 in the game. And Gal Vorback just doesn't have that survivability. Now, it is corrupted unit type, so force weapons of any kind gain instant death against it, as do any sort of like force attacks. However, Achaea force weapons, like the Thousand Suns have, are technically not force weapons. They don't have the force type, they have the Achaea force type. So Thousand Suns force weapons will actually not affect the Marigal Dreadnought for the purposes of that rule until it is FAQ clarified, which could take a long time because the FAQ seems to be focusing on very, very meaningless points. The other thing with it is, it's Shroud of Darkfire, special rule. For all intents and purposes, an adamantic reactor. So it's going to be that you only take D3 wounds instead of instant death ability, and on top of that, your Plasma, Flamer, Melter, and Volkite weapons are -1 strength when used against this. So it's got a little bit of resilience there. Really, it's a good unit. Yeah, it's an elite's choice though, so it is fighting in that category, but at weapon skill 6, this thing is going to cause even the high weapon skill units, weapon skill 5 stuff in the game, some pause. I don't think it's worth taking any ranged weapons on it. The low ballistic skill is just not that great. If you give it a Tainted Core, you're really just doubling up on what it's good at, so that's why I would probably suggest going that route. The Tainted Core, the second Power Fist, basically. That's going to take you up to an extra attack, so you're going to go to 4 attacks base, which is, pretty handy. And don't forget, the Tainted Core itself is going to give you Strength 9 base, AP 2, Brutal 2, but Murderous Strike 5+. So, 6s to wound, inflict instant death. That is, again, better than the Thousand Suns special force weapon, because you just have to roll 6s to wound. You're always going to get the ability. It doesn't put you to some random strength like 11. And it's going to apply to anything regardless of toughness, whether they're toughness 7, whether they're toughness 8. It's still going to be instant death against them. So it makes it very good at killing other dreadnoughts because, well, second Tainted Core, you're probably going to pull off the charge because the thing's relatively fast, moves through cover. You're going to be looking at, and Rampage as well, don't forget. You could be looking at 5 to 6 attacks depending on who you charge and when. And any 6s to wound with it, you're going to hit pretty much everything on 2s or 3s, and 6s to wound are going to be instant death. I mean, that's fantastic. And against regular Marines, Strength 9 is more than enough for most situations, and it's brutal too. So keep that in the back of your mind, and those instant death attacks could also be brutal too. Keep that in the back of your mind. And with 8 wounds, this not quite 2 contemptors, it's like 1.3 contemptors, still plenty of survivability. So, out of all the units here, it's really just the Blood Angels, Legion Contemptor, and the Marit Gull, specifically the Blood Angels Incendius, and the Marit Gull that really get a full-on thumbs up. There is a lukewarm thumbs up to the Iron Circle and the Kizagana Landspeeder that can be made to work, but a bit situational, really more just fluff and fun than anything. And the Thousand Suns units, like the Thousand Suns Legion, are just avoid at all costs. Because, yeah, there's just other things you can take that are better for your money. I'm not talking points and winning games here, I mean just better for your money. Anyway, that's it from me, Make with the Outer Circle. Hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all on the next one.